Hello, welcome to History. I'm Mrs. Allen and I'm here today to give you my guide to chronology. Chronology is organising events and dates in the order that they happened. It's important to do this for a number of reasons. By understanding events in a chronological order, you build a big picture and start to understand how different events are interconnected. Knowing the sequencing of events helps us to understand cause and consequence. Finally, when we develop our understanding of chronology, we get a sense of period, understanding what's special and distinctive about different periods in history. We're going to come back to looking at periods, but first let's talk about the language that we use. BC and AD, before Christ, and Anno Domini, meaning after the birth of Christ in Latin. Look at how the dates are organised on the timeline. Now let's look at time periods. The Roman period spans from 43 AD to 410 AD. It was Emperor Claudius who invaded in 43 AD. They brought with them the idea of laws and a legal system, as well as introducing things like the straight roads, central heating, concrete, and aqueducts that are still used today. They also developed the first ever system of public health. They had many public baths, like this one in Bath. Next we have the Anglo-Saxons. They were a mixture of tribes from Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Their main job was farming, but they were great craftsmen too. Metal workers, woodworkers, jewellers, and potters all made useful items that were also beautiful and ornate. They had armies too, and are best known for their involvement in the Battle of Hastings. William, Duke of Normandy, was victorious over the Saxons, and this led to another great change in history. During the Anglo-Saxon period, there were invasions by the Vikings. At first they just wanted to raid valuable treasures like gold, jewels and books. But later they also attempted to conquer the land. They're known for being bloodthirsty and violent, but often those who settled with their families were very peaceful. Following the Battle of Hastings, the Normans took control. This period is known for great castle building. William the Conqueror was shown to be a harsh ruler through such events as the Harrying of the North, when inhabitants were killed, livestock was slaughtered, and food stores destroyed. The feudal system was introduced as a method of control, keeping peasants in their place, and the Domesday Book was created so that William could charge the country tax. Medieval life can be divided into three categories: those who fought like knights and soldiers, those who prayed like nuns, priests and monks, and those who worked like merchants, weavers, cooks, sailors, doctors and ploughmen. The streets of a medieval town were noisy and busy. The church dominated daily life in medieval England. All medieval people believed in God, heaven and hell, and this played a huge role in their lives. Peasants worked for free on church land, and they prayed for forgiveness when they were sick, like during the Black Death. The next two time periods are the Tudors and the Stuarts. These periods were a time of new ideas and new inventions. From Henry VIII's new design of fortress on the English coast, to the creation of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre during the reign of Elizabeth I. New methods of communication were used, such as newspapers created during the English Civil War. The defining feature of this time period is changes to the religion of the country. Henry VIII changed the religion from Catholic to Protestant so that he could divorce his wife Catherine of Aragon, in the hope that he would be able to have a son and a male heir for the throne. We describe this period as a roller coaster. There were many changes and it was a dangerous time. Mary I was known as Bloody Mary for killing 300 martyrs. War was fought with the Spanish during Elizabeth I's reign. The English Civil War had many causes linked to religion. Oliver Cromwell, leader of the parliamentarians in the English Civil War, was responsible for the execution of Charles I. During this time, England was a republic, meaning that there was no king or queen. The final Stuart monarch was Queen Anne. She is known for forming Great Britain, uniting England and Scotland together. The Georgian period from 1714 to 1837 saw Great Britain expand into an empire. The four Georges were all very different, but led Britain towards becoming an industrial powerhouse. Britain's involvement in the 7-Year War led Britain to be awarded Canada, Louisiana and Florida, as well as colonies in the West Indies and Senegal. The spinning jenny was also invented, and this was one of the key developments of the industrialization of weaving during the early Industrial Revolution. Inventions like this led many people away from the countryside and into towns and cities. The living conditions were horrendous, and many of the very poor found themselves in the workhouses. They were provided with housing and food, but ultimately treated like slaves. Our next time period is the Victorians, from 1837 to 1901. During this time, Britain became the first global industrial power. The British Empire occupied a quarter of the world. Free education was offered to the poorest of children, while at the same time people were sold as slaves to work on plantations, farming raw materials to be turned into goods in English factories. Public health improved as a result of the building of sewers. The modern period, from 1901 to the present day, saw events like the First World War, Hitler's rise to power, the Second World War and the Holocaust, the Cold War that followed, a time of high tension between the USSR and US, and the rise of protest movements like the Civil Rights Movement and the Women's Liberation Movement. During this time we also saw the first landing on the moon. So now for your task. Pick a time period and create a timeline ensuring that all the events are in chronological order. Once you've done this, you can explain how events during that time are connected. Watch the video on cause and consequence to help with this.